Let's go to the Great White North, ya! Grossi Posse Packer Nation, welcome to the episode of Packcast, the podcast where you're not to be a Packers fan, but it sure does help. I am your host, Tom Grossi, and today we kick off looking at each division, both in the NFC and the AFC, and predicting who will come out on top, who will be victorious, and who will be champion. But before we get to that, just to give you a heads up on how these predictions are going to work. So I'm going to give you the order in which I think the teams are going to finish within the division. And the way I'm going to do that is by giving you a glimpse of what I think their record will be based on what their most challenging games are on their schedule, which ones they're most likely to lose or at least to face the most adversity. And then we'll take it from there. So this is not an exact science considering that this is not even mid-August. A lot of things can change between now and then. People get injured like Oren Burks, who's out for the season, or, you know, things just happen in which teams just implode. But it's August and, you know, you can only watch so much preseason football. So let's look ahead to the good times where things actually matter. So before we jump into this year, let's take a look at what happened in 2018. Of course, Bears fans, oh, this was your moment, huh, to get all cocky, because 2 years ago, this channel was flooded with Vikings fans going, hey, cheeseheads, guess who sucks now? And then we both sat here in complete awe and stunned silence as the Bears came out of nowhere and decided to take over the division, finishing 12-4. And, you know, their season didn't end well, double doink. And then the Vikings, who were in the NFC Championship 2 years ago, now went 8-7-1 last year. Of course, that one tie being us. The Green Bay Packers, after failing due to a injured Aaron Rodgers 2 years ago, were like, we're going to make a comeback. And went 6-9-1, the only time you don't want to see the numbers 6 and 9 put together, and the Lions finished at a 6-10, but still managed to sweep us. Thanks, Mason Crosby. And so coming into this year, there are a lot of factors that have made, I want to say, each team better, or at least they've stayed the same. And so when you're looking at teams like the Lions with their defensive line, or the Packers with their rejuvenated defense, or the Vikings who have decided to spare their quarterback from being sacked over 40 times, or the Bears who just are going to continue to be good because they have a guy named Khalil Mack on their team. But let's take a look at where we think these teams are going to finish for the year. Starting with number 4, last place. There's nothing that really is going to indicate that this is going to change a whole lot, and I'm sorry, Lions fans, but it is the Detroit Lions. And here's why. Before all the Lions fans, all 6 of you, are gang up on me and are like, you know, everyone's sleeping on our team, blah, blah, blah. I get it. I understand. Because listen, you have some stuff to be excited about, right? You have Flowers, you have that defensive line with now Mike Daniels, RIP. You have some wide receiver threats, although obviously Jermaine Kearse going down with a brutal injury in the first game of the preseason. I doubt he's going to play this season. I just hope that he's okay and can still have a career after that. So you have a couple of things that are going to give people problems, right? Especially that D-line. The reason why I don't think the Lions are going to do so great is not just because of their team, it's also because they have a pretty difficult schedule. So taking a look at their schedule, right now where I see their most difficult games are obviously the Chargers, the Eagles, the Chiefs. I think they'll split with the Packers, they could split with the Vikings, and I think the Bears will sweep them. And so those 7 games are already super duper difficult, so I see them going like at best around 9-7, giving them a winning record but failing to make the playoffs. And again, that's if the Packers don't sweep them, that's if the Vikings don't sweep them, and of course they don't lose any random games along the way. And so I think it's a mix of the Lions find themselves in an incredibly competitive division, And at the same time, have they done enough to really kind of break through and be one of the teams that is going to lead the NFC North? And I would say no, because right now I think the three teams that could potentially make the playoffs within this division are the ones, everyone else besides the Lions. Now, the Lions could surprise people this year, right? Matt Patricia is coming in his second year, maybe finding better ways to utilize Matt Stafford. You know, the running game, they seem to now be fixed on just one guy. And of course, the defense could help them out as well. There are factors that the Lions could do well, and I have them beating a number of people on their schedule. But again, just the fact that they're in this division is going to make it very difficult for them to make the playoffs. Then number 3. Now, I went back and forth on who I was going to put here. This honestly could go either way, and we could wind up with the same record for the number 2 and the number 3 spot. But just for based off scheduling, I'm going to put the Vikings here at number 3. And here's why. Here's where I see them facing the most difficulties. 1, they have the Bears. Let's just say that they split with the Bears, which I think the Bears could potentially sweep them. Let's say they split with the Packers, because we usually steal 1 from you. The Chargers, the Seahawks, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Falcons. And so, again, this is considering if the Bears don't sweep them and everything else goes well, they're still at 7 losses. Now, they could beat the Packers, and maybe they finish at 10-6. Maybe they steal one from the Seahawks or the Falcons, and they go 11-5. There's definitely some upside for the Vikings because they still have a great defense, definitely. They've shored up that offensive line just a little bit, and, you know, they're hoping that Dalvin Cook is able to come back and actually participate in the team and actually make some waves. But Kirk Cousins, again, to me, there's 84 million reasons why I don't trust Kirk Cousins. It's just because at the end of the day, he's a mediocre quarterback. Now, you could say the same about Mitch Trubisky, right? And that, I would say, even if you're a Bears or a Vikings fan, this is not crapping on your team, that both of them, like, they're not great quarterbacks. I don't think either of them are in the top 10. But they don't need to be because you just need to do enough to win, right? So the Bears have their running game, they have their amazing defense. The Vikings have their amazing defense, so they don't need to put up ridiculous amounts of points. But you have guys like Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs who will go off on this league, so it's just a matter of like how well Kirk Cousins is playing, and do they have that running game to supplement it when the passing game is not working. They didn't have it last year with Cook. Are they going to be able to have it again? So right now, and on top of their difficult schedule, I have them finishing around 3rd. Then moving on to numero dos, that's 2 for our Spanish-speaking friends, is the Green Bay Packers. Now, taking a look at this, they do not have the easiest of schedules, but finishing 3rd in the division did help. Where I see them having some problems is obviously against the Bears, the Vikings, the Eagles, the Chiefs, the Chargers, and could potentially have problems with the Panthers as well. Now, if that all goes well and they split with the Bears and they split with the Vikings, that's still 6 losses, so that's why they're just slightly above the Vikings at 10-6. They very well could get swept by the Bears and or the Vikings, and the Lions might be able to steal one from them as well. I'm going into this with some optimism that the Lions aren't going to sweep us again for the 3rd year in a row. But the reasons why I'm hesitant on putting the Vikings above the Packers is because the Packers obviously are almost always competitive when there's a healthy Aaron Rodgers. 2 years ago, Aaron Rodgers leaves because of Anthony Barr. And then last year, not really healthy the entire year, has leg issues, etc. So because they've always been competitive with a terrible defense, now that we have finally added some free agents like Zadarius Smith, Preston Smith, Amos, Billy Turner, etc., but specifically on the defense, even getting guys like Savage or Gary, I like to think that our defense is going to be at least competent, and so potentially within the top 15, who knows if we're going crazy with the top 10, but at least a top 15 defense, which is going to make the team overall much, much better, right? We have a great pass rush that's starting to develop, and that's going to give a lot of breathing room for our secondary, and so with that, I think the Packers are going to be more competitive because of their defense this year. I don't know what's going on with the offense. Obviously, we have Matt LaFleur. We have an entire new scheme. There's stuff coming out of camp that, you know, Rodgers and the offense is looking a little sloppy, even though Rodgers had like his best day in training camp. I think he had like 3 red zone touchdowns the other day. But what I'm saying is that there may be potential that our defense is the better side of the ball for like the first time since I can remember for the Green Bay Packers, since Aaron Rodgers has been a starter. And so because of that, and if the offense is able to at least stay where they are and the defense is able to finally rise into a top 15, I think that they can do pretty well. And that's why I have them with a slight edge over the Vikings. And then finally, yes, Bears fans, you've been waiting for this nonstop. Yep, I see the Bears still finishing first in the NFC North. Now, is it possible that like last year they implode like the Vikings? Absolutely. Would I love to see that? Absolutely. But taking a look at the guys that they lost over the offseason, like Jordan Howard or Amos, they lost those guys. These aren't really big losses. And they lost Vic Fangio, who's over in Denver. But the majority of the personnel is still there. They still have that great secondary. They still have Khalil Mack. They still have that great defensive line. And they still have some weapons, right? They have Allen Robinson. They also, besides Tariq Cohen, they drafted David Montgomery, who looked great in that first preseason game. And so for me, there's not a ton of competition with the Bears in their schedule, right? So taking a look at it, they have the Saints, they have the Rams, they have the Chiefs, and then maybe the Packers or Vikings can split with them. And so at worst, that's 11-5. But if they're able to win all of those games, they may go 13-3 or 12-4, which is, I think, above and beyond what the other teams in the NFC North are going to be able to do. So I highly expect the Bears, unless, again, they fall apart, to win the division. That's not to say that there's not going to be the Packers or the Vikings still competing for a wild card spot, which I think they definitely could do, considering the only other teams that I think are going to be or could produce two playoff teams are the NFC South, because that's a super competitive division, or potentially the Seahawks in the West. The East is just a dumpster fire that nobody wants to talk about. But unfortunately, I do see the Bears, unless something catastrophic happens, or for whatever reason, Vic Fangio literally was the glue that was holding them together. But Khalil Mack coming off, his second year, Trubisky continuing to learn, and they have a bunch of weapons. And again, their defense will just keep them in the game because they're that good. But that's how I'm seeing it. So I see the Bears finishing first, followed by the Packers, the Vikings, and then the Lions. But overall, the NFC North is one of the strongest divisions in football. It's definitely one of the strongest in the NFC. I only have the NFC South that is like anywhere close to them. So it should be a really competitive year, and it'll be very interesting to see how the playoffs shake out. But let me know what you think down in the comments below. You can always find me at TomGrossiComedy.com or at TomGrossiComedy on all the social media you see down below. Check out podcasts on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, Spotify, and all that wonderful stuff. Big shout out and thank you to my patrons over at patreon.com/TomGrossiComedy. Check that out for some cool rewards. But we'll be doing the rest of the NFC this week. We'll start the AFC next week. I am on vacation this week, so I'm not going to be here live, so I won't be around for the preseason game, but I wanted to record all this stuff just for you. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. And as always, go Pack Go.